Most people think a beautiful garden is about having money, having taste, or having a green thumb. You buy annuals that die in fall and need replacing every spring. You buy perennials that take years to mature. You buy fertilizers, amendments, and products that keep demanding more products. But for 1,000 years, there's been a different approach, a hidden tradition called the Mary Garden. Not just a collection of flowers, but an actual blueprint for a self-sustaining sanctuary. A garden designed to heal the soil and the soul with almost zero effort once it's established. And here's what's wild. You've probably walked past these flowers 100 times and never knew they were part of something sacred and ancient. Back in medieval Europe, the concept of Mary gardens originated in medieval France and surrounding countries based on the Latin term hortus conclusus, an enclosed garden, referencing Mary's virginity while each flower represented one of her virtues. These gardens were based in part on Solomon's Canticle of Canticles, where Mary is seen as an enclosed garden, honored through gardens, especially enclosed ones. For over 600 years, monks in medieval communities documented hundreds of flowers symbolically. They are associated with Mary's life, mysteries, excellences, and divine prerogatives, serving as a mirror of the faith in medieval Christendom. Each flower tells a story about Mary, about virtue, about sorrow, about joy, about strength. We're talking flowers that bloom for a century, flowers that self-seed themselves into your garden year after year, flowers with names and meanings that have survived since the Middle Ages. Hit that subscribe button now because every week we post videos that connect you to something deeper than just curb appeal, and ring that bell so you don't miss what these flowers can do. Let's get into it. Number 1, Madonna Lily, the Annunciation Lily, pure purity. Let's start with the foundation, and there's only one flower to begin with, the Madonna Lily. The Madonna Lily is native to the Balkans and Middle East and has been cultivated for at least 3,000 years. In medieval depictions of the Annunciation, Gabriel the Archangel hands a white lily to the Virgin Mary. In the 6th century, St. Bede described the translucent whiteness of the white lily petals as symbolizing the purity of Mary's body, while its golden anthers symbolized the glory of her soul as she was assumed into heaven. Here's what makes the Madonna Lily special beyond its spiritual meaning. This is a perennial that's been grown continuously for over 4,000 years. Think about that. Gardeners in the Middle Ages planted this flower, in Renaissance Florence, in colonial America, in your grandmother's garden, and it's still here, still blooming, still returning. The Madonna Lily blooms in June and July with large, pure white, trumpet-shaped flowers with yellow anthers. Between 5 and 20 flowers cluster around a stem about 1.2 meters high, emitting a strong, sweet fragrance. Unlike other lilies, the Madonna has a unique growing pattern. Plant the bulbs in late summer so they can establish a leaf rosette over winter, building strength for the spring bloom. The bulb sits close to the surface, almost half above ground, unusual for lilies, which is part of what makes it so hardy. Give it full sun, excellent drainage, and a rich soil. Once established, it returns faithfully every summer. Plant one bulb now and it blooms for your lifetime and generations beyond. Here's the design secret. Plant Madonna lilies at the back of your garden or near a wall, where their pure white height creates a visual anchor. Their fragrance carries on the breeze. You'll smell the garden from 20 feet away.
Number 2 is the peony, the flower that once planted will outlive you. Peonies aren't just beautiful. They're a commitment to permanence. There are peonies blooming today in New England farmhouses that were planted 100 years ago. Peonies that watched children grow, watched wars pass, watched generations change, and still came back every May without fail. These enormous, impossibly lush flowers come in white, cream, pink, coral, and red, doubles, semi-doubles, singles. The fragrance is intoxicating, a scent that brings back childhood memories for people who've never even grown them before. But here's the peony mystery. It often takes 3 years to bloom. The first year, modest growth. The second year, stronger. The third year, blooms begin. And from year 5 onwards, a well-established peony is one of the most breathtaking things in any garden. Plant them in May in full sun with rich, well-drained soil. Here's the critical detail. The eyes, the red buds at the crown, should be no more than 1 to 2 inches below soil surface. Too deep and the plant will grow leaves forever but never bloom. It sounds fussy, but it's a one-time consideration. Once planted, give them time. Don't fertilize heavily. Peonies don't need babying, they need respect. Stake them if they flop. Divide them every 15 years if you want more plants. Otherwise, leave them be. Cut them for daces when they bloom. A single peony bloom in a vase lasts for a week. They're cut flowers that become heirlooms because they came from your peony. Here's the deeper meaning. The peony and Mary garden tradition symbolizes Mary's divine fruitfulness and the abundance of her love. It's the flower that represents not just beauty, but generosity, the willingness to give abundantly year after year for free.
Number 3, Rose of Sharon, the mystical rose, beauty and struggle. This is where the foundation gets height and structure. Rose of Sharon grows as a small shrub or tree, 3 to 8 feet tall, depending on variety. So unlike the lily and peony, which are herbaceous, this one has woody stems that persist winter after winter. The flowers arrive in mid to late summer when many gardens are tired. 5-petaled blooms in purple, pink, red, white, blue, some with contrasting centers. Each flower lasts only a day, but the plant produces them in continuous succession for 2 months straight. Roses, especially Rose of Sharon, are called the mystical rose. White roses stand for Mary's joys, red for her sorrows, yellow for her glories. Plant Rose of Sharon in full sun. It's actually quite drought tolerant once established and loves heat. Unlike tender ornamental hibiscus, this one is hardy in cold climates. It dies back in winter and returns each spring, sometimes even more vigorous than before. Prune it in early spring to maintain shape. Deadhead the spent flowers if you want maximum blooms, though the seed pods are pretty in fall. This plant asks almost nothing and gives color for months. Here's the design principle. Plant Rose of Sharon toward the middle of your border, where its height breaks up the silhouette and its long bloom season bridges the gap between early summer perennials and fall bloomers.
Number 4, Old Garden Rose, the mystical rose, love and devotion. This is where we move from practical to poetic. Old garden roses, meaning roses bred before 1867, the year modern hybrid teas were developed, carry the weight of centuries. Mary is called the mystical rose. The beauty, fragrance, and thorns of the rose signify Mary's role in salvation history. In Christian symbolism, the rose without thorns evoked the Immaculate Conception. Red roses stood for Christ's passion and the blood of martyrs. White roses for spiritual innocence. Gardens dedicated to Mary were often called rosaries, their circular layout echoing both the flower's form and the prayer beads that bore its name. Old garden roses are different from modern roses. They're tougher, they're fragrant. Many are disease-resistant and can live for 50, 100, even 200 years. Varieties like Madame Isaac Perrier, William Lobb, Constance, Lady of Shalott, bloom once a season, but with such abundance in fragrance that a single bloom in a vase fills a room. Plant roses in May in full sun, at least 6 hours, with rich soil and good drainage. They want space for air circulation. Don't pamper them, they'll develop fungal diseases. Let them dry out between waterings. Prune in early spring. Some gardeners prune hard, some barely prune at all. A happy old rose will recover either way. Here's what makes roses essential in a Mary garden. They're the flowers that require witnessing. You don't plant a rose and ignore it. A rose demands your attention, your time, your presence. And that's part of the meaning. The rose asks you to be present to the garden, present to the moment, present to what's beautiful and what's difficult.
Here's what you're starting to see. Every one of these flowers gives back more than it asks for. One bulb or plant planted in May becomes the backbone of a garden for decades, some for centuries. That's the Mary Garden philosophy. You make one investment in time and a plant and a hole in the ground, and that investment pays dividends for years, sometimes your entire life. If this is resonating with you, smash that like button right now. It helps this video reach other gardeners who are tired of the treadmill and looking for something deeper. We're moving into the ground cover now. The humble flowers that spread and multiply, filling in the spaces, creating the soft foundation that everything else grows from. Number 5, Lily of the Valley, Our Lady's Tears, Humility and Purity. Here's a flower with a confusing name. It's not a lily at all, though it's often called Our Lady's Tears in Marian tradition. In Mary Garden symbolism, Lily of the Valley represents Our Lady's Tears. But here's the magical part. This ground cover creates a dense carpet of glossy green leaves. In May, tiny white bell-shaped flowers appear above the foliage, delicate as lace, with a fragrance that's absolutely intoxicating. Nothing like the heavy perfume of lilies or roses. This is a clean, green, almost ethereal scent.
Plant lily of the valley in dappled shade under trees or shrubs. It prefers moist soil and will spread slowly but steadily by underground runners called rhizomes. Once established, it becomes nearly indestructible. The practical magic. Lily of the valley is one of the few plants that will colonize difficult shaded areas where little else grows. Instead of fighting those dark corners, give them to this flower. In 3 years, you'll have a fragrant carpet. The only warning, it spreads, not aggressively but persistently. If you want to keep it contained, plant it where it's bordered by paths or walls. Otherwise, let it wander. The spreading is part of the beauty. Cut the flowers for small vases. They last a week and perfume a whole room. In summer, the foliage remains green and tidy all season. In fall, it yellows and dies back, but the rhizomes are already sleeping, ready for spring.
Number 6. Sweet Violet. Our Lady's Modesty, Humility, and Virtue. The violet is a symbol of Mary's humility, regarded by the Lord. Sweet violets are tiny but mighty, low-growing, spreading plants with heart-shaped leaves and small purple or white flowers that are almost hidden among the foliage. You have to crouch down to find them, which is exactly the point. They don't demand attention. They bloom quietly, persistently, almost shyly. Plant them in partial shade in moist, rich soil. They're perennials that will slowly spread by runners and by self-seeding. Once established, a patch of sweet violets becomes a ground-hugging testament to persistence. The flowers are fragrant in a way that's hard to describe. You smell them, and then the scent disappears. You lean in again, and it returns. It's almost as if the flower is playing with you, revealing its fragrance only to those patient enough to seek it. It is soft, powdery, and sweet, gentle, romantic, and slightly candied floral scent. Cut them for tiny arrangements or candied as cake decorations. They're edible and pretty enough to grace any table. Medieval manuscripts show violets being offered as gifts, small, humble offerings that meant respect and admiration. In a Mary garden, plant violets wherever you want to encourage people to slow down and pay attention. Around a bench, along a path, under a tree. The kind of flower that transforms a garden from decoration to a place of contemplation. Number 7. Forget-me-not, the eyes of Mary, remembrance and tenderness. Forget-me-not, in Marian tradition, represents the eyes of Mary. These tiny flowers, barely 3/8 of an inch wide, create a blue mist effect when planted in masses. Soft blue, sometimes pink or white, they bloom in late spring and early summer, often self-seeding abundantly to return year after year. Here's what makes forget-me-nots special in a Mary garden. They bridge the sacred and the folk. They're practically a weed in their eagerness to spread, yet they carry profound meaning. They're delicate-looking but incredibly resilient. They ask almost nothing, just partial shade and average soil, yet they return faithfully. Plant them in May in groups of at least 9 or 12 for the mist effect. They'll bloom the first year and then self-seed, creating larger colonies each year. Eventually, they'll have colonized multiple areas of your garden without any effort. Cut them for tiny bunches or leave them standing to feed pollinators and to self-seed. In medieval tradition, forget-me-nots were kept as tokens of remembrance. A gardener would press them into letters or books. We still do, though now we do it digitally, which somewhat misses the point. Here's the design principle. Use forget-me-nots in drifts around larger plants. Their soft color makes everything around them look richer. The blue-purple haze provides visual rest that allows other colors, the yellows of calendula, the reds of roses, to stand out. Number 8. Columbine. Our Lady's doves, the Holy Spirit. From its petals resembling doves, the columbine has been adopted as an emblem of the Holy Spirit. In paintings of the Madonna and in Mary gardens, the columbine recalls that Mary conceived of the Holy Spirit, of whom she is also the dwelling place or temple. Look at a columbine flower closely. The petals truly do look like doves, or like the tongues of flame that descended upon the apostles at Pentecost. It's one of those flowers where the symbolism isn't imposed, it's intrinsic to the form. Columbines bloom in late spring in colors ranging from pale pink to deep burgundy, blue, purple, and bicolor combinations. The spurs extend backward in delicate curves. They prefer partial shade and moist, well-drained soil. The practical magic of columbines, they self-seed enthusiastically. Plant 1 or 2 in May, and in 5 years you'll have a dozen scattered throughout your garden. As they cross-pollinate, the colors shift and evolve. You get combinations you never planned, new colors appearing in generations to come. This is what makes columbines perfect for a Mary garden. Each generation brings slight variations. Your great-grandmother's garden might have had pure pink columbines. Yours might have blue and white bicolors. Your granddaughter's might have deep plum varieties. The garden evolves through the plant's own generation.
Columbines typically live 3 to 4 years, then naturally decline, but by then they've self-seeded enough to replace themselves many times over.
Now we're moving into the third category, the apothecary. These are the flowers and herbs that historically served dual purposes. They were beautiful in the garden, but they were also medicinal, useful, practical. Medieval monasteries maintained these plants with intention. A monk tending the apothecary garden wasn't just gardening for meditation. He was also preparing remedies for healing. Modern Mary gardens honor this tradition. You're planting flowers that are beautiful and that also work. This is where the garden becomes not just spiritual, but functional. Number 9, Calendula, healing and joy. Calendula in Marian tradition is known as Mary's gold. Calendulas bloom continuously from late spring through the first frost with bright orange or yellow flowers. They're almost impossible to get wrong. They tolerate poor soil, full sun, neglect, drought. They'll bloom in practically any condition. Here's the apothecary part. Calendula flowers have been used for centuries to make salves, tinctures, and teas. The petals have gentle healing properties for skin. You can infuse them into oil or steep them for a soothing tea. Medieval herbalists prescribed calendula for everything from wounds to digestion. But you don't have to be an herbalist to benefit. Simply harvesting the flowers, pinching off the spent blooms to encourage more, is meditative work. Pressing flowers in a book, drying them for winter teas. This is why the apothecary plants matter. They invite you to engage with the garden beyond just looking. Plant calendula in full sun in May. Direct seed them if you want maximum plants. They self-seed abundantly, perhaps too abundantly in some gardens, but the solution is simple. You have calendula flowers to harvest, dry, or cook with. The abundance becomes a feature. Deadhead for continuous blooms, or let flowers go to seed and you'll have volunteers everywhere next year. Either way, you're getting orange color from June through November.
Number 10, Echinacea purple coneflower, the pollinator's gift, resilience and protection. This is a native North American prairie plant that's been used medicinally for centuries. The flower has a distinctive raised cone in the center, surrounded by drooping purple, pink, or white petals. It's unmistakable. Plant Echinacea in full sun in May. It tolerates drought, poor soil, heat, humidity, everything gardeners dread. It thrives on neglect. This is a plant that, once established, asks almost nothing and gives color for months. Here's the magic most gardeners don't know. Leave the seed heads standing through winter. Don't cut them back in fall. Those cone-shaped seed heads become critical food sources for goldfinches and chickadees. You'll watch them cling to the stalks in January, harvesting seeds, and you'll realize your garden is working 12 months a year. Echinacea is also a pollinator magnet. Bees, butterflies, and wasps flock to the nectar. Plant 3 in May, and in 5 years you'll have a dozen from self-seeding and division. In Marian tradition, Echinacea represents resilience and protection. It's the flower that cannot be broken, that comes back stronger each year, that feeds others even as it fades.
Number 11, Borage, the courage herb, bravery and spirit. Borage is an herb that's been used for centuries in medieval gardens. It's got delicate star-shaped flowers in electric blue, a color that's rare in gardens. The entire plant is covered in fine hairs that make it soft to touch. The flowers taste like cucumber and are edible. The leaves can be made into tea. Medieval herbalists said borage gave courage. Virago eo repens, borage bringing courage. Here's the practical part. Borage self-seeds abundantly. Plant it once and you'll have volunteers appearing for years. It grows quickly, often finishing its life cycle in a single season, but producing so much seed that new plants emerge constantly. Plant borage in full sun in well-drained soil. It tolerates poor soil better than rich. Don't baby it. Give it space and it will reward you with constant blue flowers from summer through early fall. The bees absolutely lose their minds for borage flowers. If you want a pollinator-friendly garden, borage is essential. In a Mary garden, borage represents courage and heart. It's a reminder that strength isn't about hardness. It's about tenderness, about showing up, about being vulnerable. Number 12, Nasturtium, the brightest expression, joy, and war. Nasturtiums produce flowers in shocking reds, oranges, and yellows, some with contrasting markings.
The entire plant is edible: flowers, leaves, seed pods. The flowers taste peppery. The seed pods can be pickled like capers. Nasturtium, in some Marian traditions, connects to Mary's joy and her role in the triumph of good over evil. Nasturtiums are fast-growing annuals that will self-seed in warm climates. Plant them in May in full sun to partial shade. They prefer average soil. Rich soil produces too much leaf and not enough flower. Here's the design trick. Plant nasturtiums in containers or along edges where their bright colors create visual pop without overwhelming. One nasturtium might look small. 12 plants together create an electric display. Aphids love nasturtiums, which is why they make good trap crops, but the plant shrugs it off. The leaves yellow and drop, new leaves emerge. The flowering continues.
Now we enter the fourth and final category, the shadows. These are the flowers that bloom in partial shade, that appear when many gardens are tired, that carry the weight of sorrow and transformation. In the Mary garden tradition, these represent Mary's deepest mysteries: her suffering, her power, her role in the redemption story. These plants are often complex. Some are finicky compared to what we've already planted, but they're essential. A garden that only celebrates joy is naive. A Mary garden honors the full spectrum of human experience. Number 13, bleeding heart. Mary's heart, sorrow, and love. Look at a bleeding heart flower. The form speaks for itself. A perfect heart shape with a teardrop at the bottom, like a heart pierced and weeping. Bleeding heart is known in France as Mary's heart, and in Germany as Our Lady's heart. It resembles the emblem of Mary's sorrowful heart, a heart pierced with a sword, used in art to recall Simeon's prophecy to Mary, and a sword shall pierce thy soul. Bleeding heart is a shade-loving perennial that blooms in spring. Long, arching stems decorated with rows of heart-shaped flowers in rose pink or pure white. The leaves are lacy and delicate. Here's the pattern. Bleeding heart blooms spectacularly in spring, then gracefully disappears below ground in summer heat. This is actually a feature, not a flaw. Plant summer blooming perennials nearby to fill the gap as bleeding heart fades. It's part of the seasonal choreography that makes a well-planted garden interesting in every month. Bleeding heart thrives in the same shaded, moist conditions that hostas and ferns love, making them natural companions. Plant them together, and you get spring drama from bleeding heart, followed by summer structure from hostas, two plants doing two different jobs in the same space. The white-flowered variety, alba, is particularly ethereal, softer, more ghostly, beautiful in woodland settings. Both colors attract hummingbirds and early emerging bumblebees.
Number 14, Hellebore or Lenten Rose, Winter's Herald, Grace in Darkness. Here, things get strange and wonderful. Hellebore blooms in winter, sometimes in December, usually through February and into early March. When everything else in the garden is asleep, hellebores are flowering. The flowers are slightly nodding, bell-shaped, in colors ranging from pure white to deep burgundy, sometimes with spotted interiors. The foliage is dark, divided, almost primitive-looking, like something from a secret woodland. Hellebore, in Marian tradition, is associated with the Lenten season, the period of penance and preparation leading to Easter, connecting to Mary's sorrows and her witness to Christ's passion. Plant hellebores in partial shade in moist, well-drained soil. They prefer cool climates and will struggle in heat. Once established, they're remarkably long-lived. Some hellebores live 15 to 20 years in the same spot. Here's the practical magic. Hellebores bloom when pollinators are scarce, when the garden is gray and bleak, when you need color the most. A single bloom in a vase lasts for weeks. Cut them and they last longer than almost any other flower. Hellebores self-seed moderately, creating new plants that appear nearby over years. Eventually, you'll have hellebores scattered throughout your shaded areas, emerging like hope in the darkest season.
Number 15, Iris, the royal flower, majesty and sorrow. We close with the iris. This is the flower that represents both majesty and sorrow, both Mary's queenship in heaven and her suffering on earth. Iris, with its deep blue color, symbolizes Mary's fidelity. Its blade-shaped leaves denote her sorrows. Irises produce those unmistakable flowers with 3 upright petals called standards and 3 drooping petals called falls. The color combinations are extraordinary.
deep purple with yellow beards, pure white with blue veining, copper and rust and bronze. Plant iris in May for establishment. They appreciate time in the ground before winter, and most varieties will bloom the following spring with increasing vigor each year after. Beard and iris wants full sun, and the rhizomes actually need to bake at the surface in summer heat. Don't bury them completely. The tops should be visible, sitting at or just above soil level. Siberian iris is a different character, graceful vase-shaped clumps of fine foliage with smaller, more elegant flowers. It tolerates moist conditions and partial shade, filling the niche between sun lovers and true shade plants. Here's the generosity of iris. It divides easily every 3 to 4 years. After 20 years, one rhizome becomes dozens. It is one of the most generous self-multiplying plants in the perennial world. The rhizomes form a visible network at the soil surface, almost a sculpture in themselves. Some gardeners paint them or arrange them. Others simply appreciate the geometry of how iris spreads and persists. The iris carries a quiet, powdery scent, soft as old parchment and sun-warmed linen. It lingers lately in the air, as if it were never meant to be noticed, only remembered.
The philosophy of a merry garden. And there we have it. 15 flowers, 4 categories, 1,000-year-old system that still works today. Medieval communities understood the merry garden as an enclosed garden, a hortus conclusus, where each flower represented one of Mary's virtues. But here's what's remarkable. This system was never meant to be a museum piece. It was meant to grow, to persist, to feed people and pollinators, to adapt to each gardener's unique place and climate. When you plant a merry garden, you're not recreating the past. You're joining a conversation that's been going on for 1,000 years. Each gardener adds their own understanding, their own reverence, their own attention. Here's the pattern you've seen in every single plant. They return every year, bigger than before. They ask less and less from you as they age. They self-seed and multiply. They feed birds, bees, butterflies, and beneficial wasps. They have names and meanings that connect them to something larger than decoration. This is not the gardening industry's model. The industry wants you replanting every spring, buying annuals that die, feeding soil that's been depleted, buying the next thing. A merry garden disrupts that model completely. You plant once, you tend occasionally, then for years, decades, sometimes a century, it gives. Your great-grandmother's peony blooms in your garden. Your peonies will bloom in your granddaughter's garden. This is what a merry garden is, an act of devotion that's also an act of resistance. It says, I'm not interested in the endless treadmill. I'm interested in something that lasts, something that matters, something that feeds more than just my eyes. If this has shifted something for you, if you're leaving here with a vision of a garden instead of a list of chores, hit that like button. Drop a comment below and tell me which flower you're planting first. Are you Team Madonna Lily and Rose for a formal, fragrant garden? Team Bleeding Heart and Hellebore for shade and sorrow? Team Calendula and Echinacea for the apothecary approach? Subscribe to Still Land if you haven't already. Every week we post videos designed to help you grow smart, grow simple, and grow with nature instead of against it. Because this is what gardening should be, not a battle, not an endless transaction with the garden center, but a partnership, a conversation that began 1,000 years ago and continues in your soil, in your hands, in the flowers that bloom year after year after year. See you next time.